Hello. Once again, we're going to attempt to solve a word problem using some algebra equations. When we take a look at the word problem, it tells us a chemist mixes distilled or pure water with a 90% solution of sulfuric acid to produce a 50% solution. If 5 liters of distilled water is used, how much 50% solution is produced? Wow. All right. Once again, we have lots of percentages going on. And we've got the pure water, and we see the word mixes. And so all of that leads me to think this is a mixture problem. And because it's a mixture problem, a strategy to help me organize it is to use a picture. So I'm going to include a picture of containers showing that I am mixing things together. So it tells me a chemist mixes distilled or pure water. So this first container is my pure water container with a 90% solution of sulfuric acid. So mixes it with 90% acid to produce a 50% solution. So this goal out here is to get 50%. So really this is a dilution. It was very strong and we're diluting it with this pure water. All right, so that's my percentages, what I know so far. But I don't actually have a percent in this first container. So I'm going to put a little box there because I really am going to need a percent or value for that. Reading the second sentence, it says that 5 liters of distilled water is used. So I know that. How much of the 50% solution is produced? Well, that depends because I don't know how much of the 90% solution is used. So going across, I'm going to put the 90% with an X, liters. I don't know how much of that I'm dumping in. And then I don't know how much I'll end up with either, so Y, liters. So I have two variables. It's different this time because one is on the left of the equals and one is on the right of the equals, but we can work with that. And the Desmos graphing calculator can work with that as well, so that won't be an issue. Now, I have to think about this pure water because I need a value or percent for it. So pure water has how much acid? And as I'm writing this, I hope you're thinking, well, if it's pure water, it should have no sulfuric acid. So the answer to that, pure water has how much sulfuric acid? The answer should be none, which would be 0%. So this first container, that pure water, is not contributing any sulfuric acid to the mixture. Now, as we've talked about before, we're going to need two equations, and our ideas for those two equations are an items equation, which in this case our items are liters, and we know that because they told us about the 5 liters. And that items equation is this bottom row based on how I wrote it. So my items is I have 5 liters from the first container, adding in X liters from the second container, and then I will have a total of Y liters in the final container. I also need a value equation, and the value equation includes the percentages. So 0%, even as a decimal, is 0 times 5. 90%, so I have to make that a decimal, so 90 over 100 equals 0.9. So I have plus 0.9 times X. And 50%, I need that to be a decimal, so 50 over 100 equals 0.5. And so this equals 0.5 Y. Now, in this last equation, I am going to do just a tiny bit of cleanup because I know that 0 times 5 does indeed equal 0. And so this equation could just be rewritten as 0.9x equals 0.5y. Because I don't have to add the 0 plus 0.9x. That doesn't add any value to the equation. From here, I'm going to pull up my Desmos calculator and type in my equations. So my first one is 5 plus x equals y. And then my second one is 0.9 x equals 0.5 y. And so I have my two equations. I do see them here, but I don't see where they meet. So I'm scrolling down to zoom out, find this point, and it's 6.25, 11.25. So I'll write that into my screen. 6.25, 11.25. We know that these represent x and y in alphabetical order. And based on my drawing, my x was the liters of the 90%. My y is the liters of the 50%. And when I look up at the question, it was, if 5 liters of distilled water is used, how much of the 50% solution is produced? So answering that question is this y value of 11.25 liters. I can do a very quick mental check too. If I look at the items, 5 liters plus 6.25 liters definitely equals 11.25 liters. So I have that nice built-in check that I can do to make sure this all works.